Few developers have had as much of a say in Salford's recent renaissance as Salboy. In the last 10 years, the developer has delivered thousands of homes across its home city, with plenty more in the pipeline. My name is Dan Whelan, Deputy Editor of Place Northwest, and today's podcast is brought to you by one of Salboy's long-time collaborators, Euan Kellie Property Solutions. Joining me for this episode are Salboy Managing Director and Co-founder Simon Ismail and Euan Kellie Property Solutions Director, Euan Kellie. Together, we will aim to get under the skin of Salford's ongoing regeneration, reflect on a decade of development, and look to the future and what is in store for Salford. So in the first part of today's podcast, we're going to reflect on the past 10 years of Salford's regeneration. And as I mentioned in the intro, Salboy's had a huge role to play in that. Highlights of the last 10 years?
Highlights of the last 10 years. Working with Euan, number one.
Oh, likewise.
Blackfriars, biggest highlight for me.
Really, why is that?
It's my favourite scheme, still to this day. Bringing back to life the listed pub, which is where my mum was raised and brought up just over the road. A lot of my family drank in there, as in my grandparents and so on. And it's just a beautiful scheme. Love the scheme. It's exciting. It's when we first decided to become a developer in our own right rather than just funding developers. So took it right through the design process, planning process with you and the rest of the design team. Had a real, when it's just one, you can have a lot of input and a real impact on it, which I felt like I had.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's it. It's my favourite.
Yeah, nice. Well, yeah, that juxtaposition between the modern green buildings and, like you say, the historic pub at the bottom is a really interesting mix, isn't it? And then we have at Castle Irwell, where we were recently, and we have the old turnstile building as well. So that retaining heritage as part of your schemes, is that something that you've always got an eye on?
Yeah, hugely important. Blackfriars, the other reason why that was that was the old residential area of city centre Manchester, so that's where all the industrial city, that's where the residents, where the workers, the real grafters, that's where they lived and was raised on those previous streets of Trinity and the Blackfriars area. So to bring that back to life, but to retain the public house, which I think is the oldest in Salford, fairly certain it's the oldest in Salford. It was important to us. There was no way we was getting rid of it. The council were nervous and worried. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be, this will be. And then they were worried that we'd turn it into an office. It's not going to be an office. It will be a pub. It will be a pub, restaurant, whatever it will be. It will serve the community and serve it well, especially the residents of the Blackfriars development. So dead proud of it. Same happened down at Castle Irwell. Very close to Fred in terms of it was where he started his career as a runner. Not as close to me, but still, it's where my mum had her first job, working in the turnstile building,
right?
Giving out the tickets. So it's just, I think everybody in Salford probably has a story about the old Manchester Racecourse and Castle Irwell and what it means to them over the years. So to restore that building was the first thing we did, to make sure it was restored, let people know that we're here, it's a presence. And that was the site office for Domus and the sales centre as well. If you've been in it, you'd have seen it.
Back to local Blackfriars, the scheme you worked on as well. Do you have similarly fond memories?
So that project, is really close to my heart because it was tricky through planning. It was never straightforward. We had it started really, really well, and then there were points of discussion, but we got it through. And the thing that was so exciting about it was it was at a point, 2014, where there was a sea change in terms of, I think, the residential market, and that's what Simon and the team wanted to do. It wasn't just an apartment block. It was an apartment block that retained a listed building. It was an apartment block that was all about the management. That was the key thing. And I'd lived in town in a couple of apartment blocks, and at the time the mentality seemed to be, well, you go into your apartment, you shut the door, and that's it. Blackfriars is the complete opposite. It was all about the experience, the management, the use of the space, the collaboration. So every time I see it, it just brings back nothing but fond memories because it was a brilliant project. It was great for Salford because, it's a bit like the Flashback Friday posts I put on LinkedIn every week. It's so easy to remember how if you walked up Blackfriars Road then 10 years ago, it just, the city just tapered away to nothing. Spectrum on the right, but nothing over there, nothing across the road. And that became, a destination. So 100%. It was still means huge amount to us personally and professionally.
Yeah, you mentioned there the sort of evolution of the residential sector, which, you know, Salboy's played a key role in schemes in Salford, but also in Manchester as well. But also, we're talking about Salford's journey. You know, that's part of the city that you mentioned now, when we can include Greengate in that as well, has evolved massively in a very, very short space of time. What do you put Salford's success more generally down to, Simon?
The first thing that's coming to my head is just the brand of Manchester. Salford is part of that. Manchester it's a phenomenon what's gone on here over the past probably 15 years now, I'd say, 12, 15 years. They had to be a second city in the UK, and I think it's happened partly organically, but partly by the planning departments and the likes of people like you writing books showing about where the city can go and should go, and post-IRA bomb and so on. But yeah, I think Salford's just been a part of that because of that. And also, they've had good people at Salford that have really genuinely wanted to see things happen, and they have been very, very forward-thinking and proactive and helped us. I think Euan just hit the nail on the head. It was quite difficult, Blackfriars. In fact, the Crescent was more difficult, I think, wasn't it, because of the Black Horse pub?
Yes.
Both were quite difficult schemes to get through. It was a real watershed moment, I believe. That it certainly was for us as a company, and I think for you as well, because that was the first project. We've never changed. We've never changed what our kind of ethos, what it was that we were trying to deliver, and that was best in class. Don't suffer with, as in, don't let the quality be. Make sure there's enough amenity. Don't try and take every single pound off the table. Don't worry about if the apartments are, as in, you understand what I'm saying. Net to gross wasn't a massive thing for us. It needed to be the right story. It needed to be a destination, the place to live, and where people would keep coming back to, so it'd last the test of time. We had to be proud of the Salboy brand over it, and that was we've continued doing that from then until now. But I think Salford bought into that with us. It took a while. Because it was our first development, that on the Crescent. We started Blackfriars first, I think, didn't we?
They were both going to go at the same time. Then Blackfriars kicked off and the Crescent was put on the shelf for about 12 months.
Yeah. But I think that's probably... I think it's mostly to do with the brand of Manchester, not just Salford. But also because there's good people at Salford Council that wanted things to happen. And I think that was a turning point for everybody.
Absolutely, yeah. And Euan, your thoughts on that? And that you've mentioned the importance of collaboration before. You spoke about your relationship with Simon and the Salboy team, and with the City Council. That's something that is just getting more and more important, I guess.
Stronger, more important. I think one thing that Salford do really well is, I think you get I'd say that almost like an interdepartmental, that's the best way to describe it, crossover. So I think you don't get them operating in isolation. You'll get planning officers at senior level, director level. You'll get them having a view, but they will be liaising with the regen team, the development team. I think that there's a collective direction, so you can call on officers, not just in planning, but in different departments, to have conversations, get direction. And I think all of that works. Yeah, I think Salford, they present themselves very well as an authority in terms of, I think, being open for business. If you've got a site that you're looking at very early on, you can have conversations with people. They're very good at having the formal pre-application processes if you need to do that, if you need to get that kind of expedited service through a PPA. So yeah, we've always found them to be really, really positive to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've painted a picture of a decade of just sort of progress and getting things done, but there must have been frustrations along the way as well. We've had COVID, we've had other sort of economic upheaval. Is there anything that you might have changed, Simon, over the last 10 years that might have enabled you to deliver more quickly? Or do you think you've done about what you could have done in that time?
Well, we didn't stop through COVID. Literally, we didn't stop in Salboy office or Domus office. They were straight on site the day after. Yeah. We were exempt, finance, development, building, we could. So that didn't slow us down at all, I wouldn't have said. Is there anything else that we could have done? No, I think we've grown at a good, steady rate, which was my driving, really. It's the amount, it's the rate that I wanted to grow at. And it wasn't, I didn't say at the beginning, this is how many developments I want to do, this is how many units I want to complete in a year. This is how I want to sell it. No, obviously it's organic. It's not the way we run business. We do things in a different way, myself and Fred. But so Salford and Manchester are really good, really good. Now, they're really good to us, as in it took a long time. They now truly have bought into what it is that we said we were going to do and what it is we're trying to achieve. They do genuinely realise that we are trying to do things for the better in the city.
Yeah, I guess it takes time to build that trust, though, doesn't it,
Absolutely.
when you're a new player?
Well, they've heard it a lot, I should imagine, over the years. And they, obviously, we, again, bring you back to life listed buildings, happy to deliver, you know, I don't know, we're not supposed to talk about viaducts too, are we? But, you know, we'll be delivering the first... I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. We're delivering the first, I think it's the first purpose-built affordable housing block within the city, right in the city centre.
Yeah.
So that's important to us. And other things that we've done over the years. Yeah, so there have been frustrations, but nothing that you wouldn't expect.
Let's talk a little bit more, Euan, in this second part about unlocking those sites, because we spoke a bit about Castle Irwell.
Yeah.
It's important, isn't it, that if Simon comes to you with a site and says, we want to build X on here, that you tell him exactly what can be done, not what he wants to hear, I guess.
Absolutely. And I think this is us as a business. This is what we pride ourselves on, which is obviously is giving amazing service, but it's being honest as well and give as much transparency over the art of the possible. So, you know, if we think some things genuinely pushing the envelope or just isn't a goer, you know, the thing that's always in our mind is think of the client, think of the client's money. You know, we don't want them to buy white elephants and misspend. So, but equally, what we're very focused on is giving that information, because when Simon and his team are making those decisions, whatever they are, be it land acquisition, property acquisition, decision making within a process, my view is, if I was on the other side of the fence, I want to know what my options are, and then I'll make a decision. So that's really key for us. So to answer the question, I think we want to get under the skin of a site. You know, whenever we get approached, that's the first thing we do. It's like, oh, right, brilliant. Which authority is it? Right, and we'll kind of scramble around, get the information, but we'll go lengthwise and depthwise in terms of the information. It'll be all the stuff you can see on the surface, which is what's the allocation, is there a framework, what are the height constraints, all that stuff. But we'll always try and just drill down with our local intelligence. What do we know about the area? Are there any of the schemes we've worked on nearby? Which ward is it? What's the direction of travel for the authority? And we'll give that visibility, because, like I say, we want to give the best service possible, and we want to give that transparency to help decision making, but also, you know, understand what does the authority want to get from it as well. What are their priorities? And then once you've got all those things in front of you, you can start to make some, you know, really clear decisions.
Yeah. And in terms of what you guys look for in a site, Simon, what's the archetypal Salboy site? Is there anything you wouldn't touch?
It's not really to do with is there anything we wouldn't touch. I don't really like huge listed building projects. In terms, it's fine bringing back to life an element in the scheme that's listed, but to do a full listed project like we have done at the Press, they're a nightmare, absolute night, just a disaster. They always end up being a disaster. It always costs you at least 50% more than what you ever budgeted. I think it's more about for me, being a salesman, it's more about the story at the end before you sell it. So can you tell it? Firstly, are we regenerating an area? That's important to us. I don't want to go into an area so I'm never going to go over to Hume where Ready can build. You might want to take that out.
No,
I'm a good mate with Darren. It's all right. He knows I'm winding him up. But we would never go over to that area. It's just that's their patch, that's their man. Not that he'd have an issue or I'd have an issue. I just don't feel like we can add any more value to that. He's done what he's done, and I think whatever we do then would have to kind of marry into what he's done. And we want a clean, fresh slate. You know, we want to be able to do what we want to do. So no, there's no areas.
Okay. What are the key elements now that basically must-haves in development that weren't necessarily 10 years ago? Do you think what are you seeing more and more?
Well, I mean, affordable housing is maybe not the best answer to give under that heading, but we know that's really important. We know that it's been a priority for as long as I can remember, and it just becomes an even greater priority. Rightly so as far as delivery is concerned. So that's certainly a big priority. I think that the open space, you're absolutely right. That's, I mean, for as long as I've worked on big schemes, when you've got, the tall buildings, there is always that question of, height, scale, materiality, all those things are really important, but it's always important to look at how it hits the ground. How does it actually function? Because it's easy to get carried away with, oh, it looks amazing from the distance. That is a given, and that's absolutely right. But at the same time, the local authority and the investor developer obviously want to make sure it's a usable space.
It's activated.
Yeah, it's activated. You've got a space where you can get tenants as well. You want it to be a space where you put in the commercial mixed-use space. It's somewhere that firms are going to want to be located. I think the management of buildings, for the last easily the last 10 years, is a huge topic, because again, it's not just about numbers. It's not just about new dwellings. It's about how is this space going to be managed? How is it going to be safe? What's the quality going to be like for everyone? So that's undoubtedly a key issue that I'd say has emerged in the last 10 years, maybe a little bit less.
So looking ahead then, we've reflected on 10 years and sort of the journey and how we've unlocked these sites. What's next for Salford in your view, Euan? I know that's a difficult question.
No, it's difficult, but it's a brilliant question. And I think we as a business, and I get really excited when we think about Salford's potential, because again, 10 years really isn't that long when you think about it. And the scale of development, the work that Simon and his team have done over the last few years is unreal, because it's not that long really. And at the same time, I think Salford's got so much that's potentially going to happen. You've got, you think if I split it apart geographically, you've got the city centre overlap obviously with Manchester, but you've got Salford city centre, you've got amazing schemes like Obsidian that's obviously being delivered with Simon and his team. You've got the Crescent that's going to come forward. You've got, I think, the really exciting pieces as well are places like Eccles and Swinton. This kind of the satellite towns of Salford really. You've got those areas. You've got other areas which are on the periphery of the areas I mentioned, like the city centre, the Crescent. You've got the areas on the overlap of there where development investment activity is naturally going to spill over, because that's what happens. You get your framework areas, you get the activation, then it's right, okay, let's go on to the next bit. So I think there's a huge amount of time. You've got Salford Quays. Salford Quays, new framework came out for there in February. That's all about driving more development, because again, there's so much potential down there. So I think Salford is hugely exciting, because like I say, you've got the high value, high profile areas, but there's so much going on in these other parts. You've got the Reeve, which I know is the affordable housing element, which the city are very, very keen on driving forward, and rightly so, and that's going to be really exciting to see happen. So yeah, they've got plenty to be excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and Simon, for Salboy, can you envisage yourself in Eccles or Swinton going forward, spreading out, as you mentioned, as Salford sort of grows?
So high rise, we kind of pride ourselves on being on what I consider position A or position A plus, which is within the inner ring road, within the ring road, Manchester, of the city centre, which includes the Salford as we spoke about. I think could have got to Eccles, of course we could. We talked to the council a lot in Salford about the civic centre in that area. We've looked at different areas. The values aren't there for costs at the moment. That's our problem, and this is the reason really. We won't build rubbish. We're not interested in building rubbish. We're not in this to earn a quick buck. We get profits from all our schemes. Of course we do. We want our pound of flesh, but we've got to be proud of what we're delivering, especially it's our hometown. It's, we morphed into becoming a developer because it's our hometown and because of the boom of Salford and Manchester at the time. What I think Salford will learn going forward, and I think they already have, is, so would we go into those areas? Yeah, when the time's right. Time isn't right now. I think probably Liverpool Road's the natural extension of the city. That's probably where we'll go next. As well as out towards Cheetham Hill, which is where we're going now, with the Waterhouse Gardens and that next expansion.
Yeah, Strangeways obviously is under the microscope, isn't it?
Correct. Between here and Castle Irwell, out the back of Trinity and so on. So those areas definitely, when that'll happen, I can't tell you. And I do believe that Salford, and I speak to Salford about this, speak to all the powers that be at Salford about this. I think in the past they've allowed substandard developments to come forward. I don't think they've had a choice of course they've got a choice, but I think they've just had to deliver homes and make sure that homes are delivered in those areas without getting left behind, because Manchester was booming so much. Manchester addressed that some years ago. You cannot build a substandard development under Dave's watch, if you like, and under the city. You just can't, and that's important. And I think Salford are now on that. They go to that next level because actually now they see the value in the land that they've got, and they also see the ability of developers to be able to push those values and do better things, put more amenity in, and people will move out, out of the city centre as long as it's commutable. So yeah, I think that's the next step.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Euan, final word to you. You've been working with Salboy now for a decade, various schemes. You've got some that have delivered, some
100% strike rate with
some on site, some that are yet to be announced, which we're sort of waiting with bated breath for. How would you sort of sum up that relationship, your relationship with the city of Salford, and how far it has come over the last 10 years?
Salford has been absolutely brilliant because I think, I know they're very different to us in terms of what they do, but I think they mirror us in many respects in that they want to get stuff done. They want it to be amazing quality, but there's no boundaries. There's no, we can only go up to this stage. I feel that as a developer investor, they keep learning, and you can feel the excitement with the projects they're bringing forward. It's a case of, right, we've done that one. Well, what's next? So I think that's been absolutely brilliant, and just they're such an exciting company to work with. They really, really are. They're just groundbreaking and just doing things differently, but great to work with. And as an advisor, at the end of the day, we can only ever give a recommendation on things, but Simon will always, they'll trust us, they'll listen. Doesn't mean they'll always take our advice, but they'll listen and they'll respect it. So that's the first thing. I mean, with Salford, again, I just think we've got a really great relationship with so many officers at different levels, all the way up to, I think they've got a great chief exec, they've got a great executive team. And we're really excited about helping them and working with them on the next 10 years as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, that is all we have time for on today's podcast. A massive thank you to you and Simon for joining me. To learn more about Euan Kellie Property Solutions, its projects and the services it offers, go to euankellie.co.uk. And for all the latest Northwest property news, including the latest on Salboy schemes, head to placenorthwest.co.uk. I hope you can join us for another episode, but for now, thank you for listening. Goodbye.